Welcome to the Live Better, Explore More podcast. I'm Alan Maciel, and with me once again is Dave King. But today we're going to have a conversation about a special dedication and the renaming of the tennis courts at McNair Park after Dave's late wife, Lynn Haggerty King.
Welcome to the Live Better, Explore More podcast with your host, Alan Maciel. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe.
Welcome, Dave.
Hey, Alan, how you doing this morning?
May 11th, a special day.
Yeah.
That's quite a recognition for somebody who has spent as much time as she did in the community, in several organizations, to get recognized in this manner.
It's amazing. And, if she was around, she would be floored by this, I think. McNair Park was always special to us. It's our neighborhood park. She spent a lot of time in the park, not just on the tennis courts, but on the playgrounds, on the ball fields with the dogs. And it was right across the street from where both our daughters went to grade school at McNair School. So we were parents at McNair Elementary for 14 years. So that part of town, the school and the park, was a place where we all spent, including my daughter, spent a lot of time.
So let's back up a little bit. How did you and Lynn end up in Petaluma? I always heard the story that you both were in San Francisco at law school, right?
Is it?
Okay. And then you guys put up a map of California through darts. She hit Petaluma and you hit the Farallon Islands.
I don't know if I even got the Farallon Islands. I probably got somewhere in the North Pacific. Well, it's sort of like that. We went to law school at the same time, different classes, different grades, as it were. We're the same age, but she started law school a year ahead of me. To fast it forward quickly, we got married in 1986, and we're still living in San Francisco, and we had our first daughter in 1990. And so we began to look for a house to buy and to move into. And, you got three directions, the Farallons notwithstanding. I had worked in the East Bay for 2.5 years at a law firm, was kind of neutral about it. We didn't have any real connection to the South Bay, but we had a lot of friends who were in apartments and whatnot in the North Bay, Marin. So we started looking north and realized pretty quickly that most of Marin County was out of our reach. And eventually, we had a realtor, and she and Lynn came up here one day. It's a plug for realtors while we're in
in a real estate office. Thanks.
No one made me do that. That just came to my head. But this realtor was great, and she said, "I've got 10 homes." Weekday, Lynn took a day off from her work at a law firm and came up and looked at 10 homes and narrowed it down to 2. And neither of us had spent any significant time in Petaluma. I think I'd been here once. So the following Sunday, we packed the Volkswagen with the dog, who was about 95 pounds, and the kid, who was now a little over a year, and drove up and looked at 2 homes. And I knew which one we were going to get because Lynn pretty much told me that this is the one we wanted. And she was right. It turned out to be the home. So that's how we wound up here. We got a home on 6th Street and moved in Memorial Day weekend, 1991. So I've been there ever since.
So you had 2 choices, but she told you which one you were going to make.
It was 2 choices with one right answer. It's like a lot of things in marriage. There's, here are our options. Here's the one we want to do.
That's right.
By the time you get a chance to comment, it's already been decided. But yeah, it was a great decision on our part. In part, I remember thinking, God, how far up is this? I had a law office in downtown San Francisco at the time. She worked for a law firm in downtown San Francisco. It's a long way, and so, but so I had my doubts, but we made it work.
There you go. Okay, so getting involved in the community. I mean, you also have done a lot of work in the community, but Where'd that come from? I mean, growing up, did your family do that? Did Lynn's family do that? Or was this just once you had kids and you started to become a part of like the elementary school, where did it come from?
I can tell you about my family. I know my parents had a fair amount of volunteer work that they did in the town I grew up in. It probably had some kind of impact on me, as that's when you grow up. That's one of the things you do. I imagine Lynn did too. I imagine her dad and mom also, excuse me, did the same. But we had started a little bit in San Francisco where we could. I did a lot of pro bono work with these organizations, with the San Francisco Bar Association you can belong to. So I worked with the Homeless Advocacy Project and the Federal Pro Bono Project, which is how I got really heavily involved into employment law. That was doing free cases in federal court for people with discrimination cases. And that's how I learned what became my practice. And so we did a little bit of that. When you're young, it's a little harder. You don't have a lot of time, especially when you're working at a law firm, which both of us worked for a period. And eventually, though, we kind of saw that as something we would get involved in. We'd hear about something, we'd kind of help out when we could. But really, in Petaluma, it became evident to us that that there are opportunities abound. You can do a lot. And so for me, it started with, politics. I wound up doing some volunteer work for the Democratic Party locally, and helped reform the Petaluma Democratic Club, which is still in existence and with a different name now. And I was on the board of Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and Lynn did a lot of volunteer work at the school, near school. And it kind of just went from there. Once you're out in the community, people who look for volunteers will find you. Well, at least they found us.
Yeah, they did. So in the process, when the process got started with the community to get this park, to get these tennis courts named in Lynn's honor, the people came out of the woodworks with stories. I mean, it was unbelievable you'd get an email from somebody. I had no idea who they were, but they knew Lynn, and there was a paragraph or two. Some wrote actual letters. Some people would just talk to me and tell me these stories. And so was there a favorite organization, or was there something that she got more? I don't want to make it sound like that she liked these, didn't like those, but was there one that maybe was a favorite?
I don't know that there was a favorite. I think Lynn was the type of person who, once she was involved, was all in. She didn't commit to something without being fully committed. I think having spent 14 years at McNair Elementary, that certainly was a favorite. Our kids were there involved. Our kids and other friends, children, and friends as well. And it was a long-term, ongoing thing. So that was very important to her. I think her work on the Andy Lopez task force was very significant, very difficult. And for those who don't remember what that was or are new to the area, it was a task force that was put together after a tragic shooting of a 12-year-old boy at Santa Rosa by the sheriff's department here in the county. And it was a task force that was put together to try to look at ways to provide police oversight in the sheriff's department. And as you can imagine, there were a lot of views on what needed to be done. And that was very hard. It was a big commitment. It wasn't just showing up at meetings, and a lot of reading and research. And so I think when she was done with that, there was some gratification of a job well done. It's a subject that probably doesn't have a complete final determination on how to go about it. and it's an ongoing process. But those were two. She loved playing tennis, which is why we're going to be dedicating the courts. And I think her involvement in the Petaluma Tennis Association was very gratifying to her. But she just wound up doing these smaller things that probably, when you put together and the PTA people put together the list, that kind of got easily overlooked. Like, she'd be involved in the neighborhood. Even when she was going through chemotherapy at the end of her life, she was involved in the local cool block, the neighborhood cool block,
Right.
and was active and as best she could, which compared to most people was probably more than most people, considering what she was going through, stayed involved. So I don't know if that answers the best organization. I think Lynn just enjoyed being with people and working toward something that would help improve whatever needed attention.
Okay, so since it's tennis courts, the PTA was one of the first organizations I reached out to. And by the way, this whole process was really teed up by Drew Halter and Rachel Beer, right, at Parks and Rec. They made it easy for me to go out and do the things I did, which then allowed me to get the community, and then the community basically took over this thing. So this was really a community-driven process. But Drew and Rachel teed this up so well. In front of the Parks and Rec Commission, we got, we were 7-0. City Council, we went for the vote. It was 7-0, and it had nothing to do with anything any one person did, other than Drew and Rachel did their job so well that they made it pretty much all anybody can do at that point was screw it up, because it was already set up. So don't do anything dumb. Just, you've already done this work. The community's done all this work, and just let the city council see what she has done, Lynn has done, to earn this recognition. So tell me the story about the tennis courts when they got resurfaced, and then how, like the pickleball court over at Lucchese. Okay, so there was tax dollars, something to do with that, right? So tell me that story and how all that played out.
Well, the city did most of the financing. The tennis courts in McNear, I mentioned earlier, we moved here in 1991, and we're over at that park a lot, including the tennis courts. At various intervals, because we didn't play a lot of tennis in the 1990s or really in the early 2000s. Once in a blue moon, we get over there. And really, both of us didn't start really playing tennis probably until the 2010s, the middle 2010s. So, but I could see the nature of the courts, and I'm not sure they had been resurfaced in the 30 years or so. The city has a finite amount of money, and the parks Music and Recreation Department has a limited budget too, probably more limited than most. So they managed to do a lot with not a lot. And you mentioned Drew and Rachel. They were great in this process, but they're also outstanding, I think, in my opinion, observing them as council member in their jobs as well. And so the way things, I think, actually happen in the city, on city council, is we set goals and priorities, and that can include things large and small. And one of the priorities I personally had and pushed was to resurface the courts at McNear and Lucchese, because Lucchese was in about the same shape, essentially unplayable. At McNear, there's a group of tennis players that come there in the morning on, I think, both weekends and weekdays, and they had done some repair work over the years, but there's a point where you really need to resurface these courts, but then it was well past it. Unfortunately, it took time, but unfortunately that we, on the city council, came to us and we approved the work to be done. It included new lights as well at McNair. And so it's a good project, not just for adult tennis players, but kids and who want to learn tennis, who are being taught tennis, whose parents are taking them out there as a way to get some exercise. it's a terrific sport in many ways, and so that's kind of how it happened. The city probably doesn't have a lot of money to resurface the courts as often as is needed. As part of this process, pickleball has, as everybody who's got a pulse knows, has boomed in the United States, and certainly boomed here in Petaluma. And so a pickleball court out of one of the tennis courts at Lucchese was created, and it was 4 courts where one tennis court exists. And then over time, the second tennis court has got a temporary pickleball court there. And when I'm over there playing tennis once in a while, as you've been there with me, and most of the times I'm over there, the pickleball courts are swarmed.
Yeah,
it seems that they definitely get used. It's a worthy investment.
Very good. I probably know the answer to this. How do the girls, Carrie and Katie, feel about this dedication?
They're incredibly honored. I think out of the whole group of people that are involved in getting this done or going to be looking at that sign in years to come, they're the ones who are going to be, the most benefit. They get the most benefit from this, because hopefully they're going to live long, happy, and productive lives, and they're on their way to doing that. And they're still, even though neither of them live here, although there's time for them to hopefully move here, if they so are inclined, they're still very connected to Petaluma. And so to have their mother honored in that fashion, just, I think, they couldn't be honored more by the fact that her name's going to be on those courts.
Nice. So May 11th starts at 10 o'clock. Drew and Rachel both thought I was going to do the dedication, and I said, no, I think, Drew, we want you to do the dedication. I think you'll do it better. Make it simple. Do it right. All right? McNair Park, May 11th, 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So from 10 to 11, roughly, is the dedication ceremony. And then from 11 to 1, Chris Horn, the president of PTA, Petaluma Tennis Association, is going to have some live ball drills, some little round robin play, so people can come out there and actually play tennis on the courts while we're there. I think this is, for me, having been involved in this process, it was crazy good to see how many people in the community would, come up, either signing the petition, showing up to the commission meeting, showing up to city council, getting emails for people to get on board, helping in any way they can. So this has been a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm sure for the community, and you'll see them out there on the 11th.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there. My kids will be there. A lot of Lynn's friends hopefully can make it, and I think we're all looking forward to it. And before we end this, I just wanted to thank a few people for this. I mean, besides Drew and Rachel, who we've already mentioned, the Park Music and Recreation Commission members and the city council members, the city managers, all of whom made sure this happened and happened relatively quickly. Knowing that there's a lot of things that they have on their plate and that they took time for this is very important, I think, to me and my family. I'd like to thank you, because I know you were heavily involved. I was not, as probably has been implied in all this, involved. In fact, you came and told me it was happening as it was happening. And there's probably a few others. The Petaluma Tennis Association, of course, I think we mentioned them earlier, but to shout out to them and all the members who signed and all the people who supported it. I'm looking forward to the event, and on behalf of my daughters and I, and Lynn's family here and elsewhere, we couldn't be more honored by this.
Fantastic. See you May 11th.
See you there.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
All right, Al, thanks.